I said flip around. There. All right. There. Whew. Goodness.
I didn't like last week's video.
Sorry.
I was eating the whole time.
I'm sorry. I am trying to be.
My Lynn is not here because she was sitting on the end.
I'm just trying to be helpful. Trying to make it so people can see if they're not here and they can still learn. All right, man? Cut me some slack. All right, guys. Let's do some quick introductions because we have a couple of new faces today. Let's just go around the table just so everybody feels like they at least know who the heck we are. Why don't you start?
Rose Hinkle. Thanks. James's mother-in-law. Libby's cousin.
And I'm Libby Graham. I'm the choir director.
Hi, Kim Nika. We just moved here from Wisconsin.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Kim Dearage.
Still a little bit, yeah.
Who are we on?
You?
Me? My turn? Yeah, my turn. James. I'm James Price. Her son-in-law. Dang it. All right, there we go.
James. Another one.
I'm out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, share. Sorry, guys. Fantastic. Oh, perfect. Thank you. And my wife's over there across the way, and I'm kind of facilitating this group, and I run my mouth a lot. So stop me. Jody.
More.
Your turn.
To what?
Introduce yourself.
I already did.
We already did that.
Everybody else, I was
Wait a
it.
minute, and I missed this.
Alicia McCall.
Alicia.
Yeah.
Nice to meet
We
you.
were around the entire
James, the
table.
very
man.
last one.
I was just trying to figure. I'm sorry, man. I need to get it
Some of this
together.
coffee?
I need to, apparently. Actually, in Alicia's story, she is here because of blackmail.
Yep.
Good job.
I blackmailed her to come. She asked me for a college recommendation, and I said, well, if you show up to Bible study.
Oh.
And she did.
I did.
She knew I was going to write one anyway. I guess.
Where are you trying to go?
Well, I was at NYU over the summer, so I was there for 6 weeks and I really liked it. So I'm hoping to go there, but then also George Washington University in DC. Yeah, that would
Cool.
Cool.
Hey, lady,
Thank you.
because I don't know if that clock's accurate. Oh, it is. Good. All right. I think Olivia set the clock ahead last week so that I would shut up. I really think so. All right, guys. Well, today we're going to be looking at the fall of Jericho. Last lesson we were looking at coming into the promised land, Joshua leading the Israelites across the Jordan and into the promised land. Today is, of course, the fall of Jericho. Do I have a volunteer that'd like to open us up in prayer this morning?
I will.
All right. Thank you, Libby.
Dear God, we thank you for this day and its many blessings. We thank you for the opportunity to come to your house and to learn more about your word and to help it. Ask that you help it to guide us in all of our thoughts, words, and deeds. We ask that you be with each person here and each family and be with their families according to their needs. And bless us as bless James as he brings us the lesson today. In your name. Amen.
Thank you. Apparently, I absolutely need it this morning, so that's good. All right, guys. So let's just jump right in so that we can kind of stay on par with our kids across the hall. Okay, guys. So the opening question here. Whom do you trust with your life, and why do you trust these people? So, I mean, as far as people in the secular world, who do you trust with your life, and why?
I assume the generic answer would be police, doctors, that kind of thing.
Okay.
To keep order if there was disarray. But if you go deeper, I would say your spouse, your parents, close friends.
Why do we put trust in those people with our very lives?
I think with trust, though, in order to trust somebody, it has to be some kind of proof before, because I don't think I would walk into a room and just knowingly trust these people yet. But the people in my life have proved themselves to be trustworthy, have been there even without asking for them to be there. They have done those things already for me to know that I can trust them.
Okay. All right. But what about things like doctors and police, like the professionals that we, trust with our lives? Why do we choose? You go into a hospital and you're sick. Jason, you're working in the hospital. Why do they trust Jason Martin when he comes in and is going to offer them care?
Well, he has training.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to have made some level of training to be able to even be there.
Okay.
So you're state licensed, you're board certified, you're whatever to even be there. So there's a standard that has to be met that the rest of the world kind of sees and approves of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although, let me say, doctors,
They're not all
sometimes you
alike.
feel like you might need another opinion. Now that happened to me and 38 years ago, so
Well, I
probably
think,
40
though,
years ago.
knowing that you've given some kind of
Yeah.
time, if
Yeah.
somebody wanted to be really, but you're right, reckless, they're not going to give that amount of time and effort to some kind of education. So
Right.
you hope comes with some, hopefully.
At least that's what we hope, right? We
Right.
hope
Yeah.
that they've done their homework and they've done, and we do tend to just kind of inherently trust these folks. And like you say, or if the other people in our lives, is it just inherently trusting, or is it because they've given us some reason to trust them, like our parents and things like
You
that?
are a parent. You're born into one.
And there's
Right.
teachers. There's certain teachers
Yeah.
that I would trust. And growing up, there were certain teachers I trusted more than others. And I think it was maybe the way they communicated and connected.
Like, unlike Alicia, who now realizes that her teacher will blackmail her to do. Well, yeah.
I think one other thing to add to this is your initial first impression, your perception of a person. Because I can have nurses that will walk into a room and instantly are not trusted. And I'll have other nurses that will walk into that same room with the same demographic, same person, and there's absolutely no issue at all. And it's so much about how you are perceived on that first impression, that first time you open that door. So, you can almost tell, is this a cool, calm, collected, confident person, or is this person kind of give you the, do you know what you're doing?
And one of the things we're going to see today is we're going to keep coming back to this idea of who do we trust and why. And that's kind of a big theme with Joshua today. So if you follow along, if you have a Bible, we're in Joshua 6. And if you don't, that's all right, because we'll just read along and it's very easy to follow. So that's no big deal. All right, so we're going to start with Joshua 6, 1 through 2, and what did the people of Jericho entrust with their lives? And then we're going to look at that, against whom are the people of Jericho fighting. So beginning with Joshua 6, I'll just start us off. It says, "Now Jericho was shut up inside and outside because of the people of Israel. None went out and none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, 'See, I have given Jericho into your hand, with its king and mighty men of valor.'" All right, so that's Joshua 6, 1 through 2. So what does it seem that the people of Jericho were entrusting their lives with?
Wall.
Yeah, the defenses of Jericho. That's why, as the story, the old gospel, Joshua fit the battle of Jericho.
The battle of Jericho.
And the walls came tumbling
Jericho. Josh fit the battle of Jericho. And the walls come tumbling down.
That's right. There you go. I like Elvis's version myself. So yes, they were trusting in these big, thick defensive walls. And if you look at the Middle East of that time period, that's what they were essentially kind of like city-states in the ancient Canaanites. And that's what they had. They had strong walls surrounding it for defensive purposes. And then even inside of the walls, they would then, they were shut up in their houses. So they were trusting on their man-made defenses to keep the people of Israel out. And if we go back and look at Joshua 5, 13 through 15, even though it's kind of implicit in what we just read, against who are they fighting? So Joshua 5, 13 through 15. Do I have a volunteer that wouldn't mind reading it? Oh, thank you, Jody.
I am reading from the King James Version. So
Oh, we're going old school.
all right. And it came to pass, when Joshua was by Jericho, that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, Art thou for us or for our adversaries? And he said, Nay, but as captain of the host of the Lord I am now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth, and did worship, and said unto him, What saith my Lord unto his servant? And the captain of the Lord's host said unto Joshua, Loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place whereon thou standest is holy. And Joshua did so.
All right. So who exactly are the people of Jericho going to be fighting against here? Like it was kind of implicit in what we read in chapter 6. Who is it? Joshua looks up, and there's a guy there with a sword in his hand, and who is he? It was a little hard to follow the King James.
Who was it?
Who's
Hold on. I've only read this about 1,000 times. I want Trey's Bible.
I know.
Hold on. Okay. When Joshua was by Jericho, they lifted up his eyes and looked, behold, there stood a man against him with his sword drawn. There it is. Nay?
Yeah, keep going. No,
This
it's not a horse.
Nay, Joshua fell his face there to worship and said unto him, What saith my Lord unto
He
his
is a
servant?
captain of the army of the Lord.
Oh, okay.
Or in this, its translation say, the commander of the army of the Lord was before him. So, and it was, like I say, a little bit implicit in 6 as well. They're not going to be fighting against the people of Israel here. They're going to be fighting against God Almighty. Is essentially who they will be fighting against. Okay, the people of Jericho aren't aware of that just yet, but they are about to figure it out. Yeah, the commander of the Lord's army is there and says to Joshua, Here's who I am. And that's why Joshua fell on his face, because he's like, whoa, commander of the army of the Lord. This is crazy. All right. So, number 3, because I'm just trying to move us to get to those ones where we can really kind of discuss more. All right, read Joshua 6:2. The Lord says, and we just did before, the Lord says to Joshua, See, I have given Jericho into your hand. So when Joshua looked, what would he have seen if he's looking out towards Jericho? Based on what we read in chapter 6, where they're shut up in the walls of their city, and what we've just seen here, what do you think Joshua would have seen?
Look vacant.
All right, he might look kind of vacant, kind of, there's not a whole lot. You'd see the thick walls of the city, that's for sure. What else might he have seen too, based on what we've read here? Because he just saw the commander of the army of the Lord. It's possible he also might have seen...
All those that were not followers.
Maybe. He also may have seen the army of the Lord around him. He may have seen, it doesn't say, but it's possible. He could have seen kind of around Jericho these, the angelic hosts of God's army. It doesn't say so, but it's possible. But he, at least we know, would have seen the thick walls of Jericho and probably looking pretty much like a ghost town because nobody's there. Well, they're there. They're all shut in. Okay. How does Israel take the city? Joshua 6:3 through 21. How does Israel actually take the city? All right, so I guess we kind of have to read this one, even though it's a long one, but I think it's kind of important. Anyone want to read that, or shall I jump in?
I'll read it.
Oh, thanks, Alicia.
You and your fighting men should march around the town once a day for 6 days. 7 priests will walk ahead of the ark, each carrying a ram's horn. On the 7th day, you are to march around the town 7 times with the priests blowing the horns. When you hear the priests give one long blast on the ram's horns, have all the people shout as loud as they can. Then the walls in town will collapse, and the people can charge straight into town. So Joshua called together the priests and said, Take up the ark of the Lord's covenant and assign 7 priests to walk in front of it, each carrying a ram's horn. Then he gave orders to the people, March around the town, and the armed men will lead the way in front of the ark of the Lord. After Joshua spoke to the people, the 7 priests with the ram's horns started marching in the presence of the Lord, blowing the horns as they marched. And the ark of the Lord's covenant followed behind them. Some of the armed men marched in front of the priests with the horns, and some behind the ark, with the priests continually blowing the horns. Do not shout, do not even talk, Joshua commanded. Not a single word from any of you until I tell you to shout, then shout. So the ark of the Lord was carried around the town once a day, and then everyone returned to spend the night in the camp. Joshua got up early the next morning, and the priests again carried the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests with the ram's horns marched in front of the ark of the Lord, blowing their horns. Again, the armed man marched both in front of the priests with the horns and behind the ark of the Lord. This time the priests were blowing their horns. On the second day, they again marched around the town once and returned to camp. They followed this pattern for 6 days. On the 7th day, the Israelites got up at dawn and marched around the town as they had done before. But this time they went around the town 7 times. The 7th time around, as the priests sounded the long blast on their horns, Joshua commanded the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the town. Jericho and everything in it must be completely destroyed as an offering to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and the others in her house will be spared, for she protected our spies. Do not take any of the things set apart for destruction, or you yourselves will be completely destroyed, and you will bring trouble on the camp of Israel. Everything made from silver, gold, and bronze or iron is sacred to the Lord and must be brought into his treasury." When the people heard the sound of the ram's horns, they shouted as loud as they could. Suddenly the walls of Jericho collapsed, and the Israelites charged straight into the town and captured it. They completely destroyed everything in it with their swords, men and women, young and old, cattle, sheep, goats, and donkeys.
All right, thank you, Alicia. Okay, so how does Israel go about taking Jericho? This big, massive walled city that is heavily defended. How do they do it?
By the Spirit of the Lord.
They followed God's instructions.
One, they did follow God's instructions. That's always helpful. But I think, the way this question's asked is actually a little bit misleading. Because I would say, did they really take the city?
They didn't take the wall. They followed instructions to break the wall. Then they were left to take the city.
Then they were left to take the city. So, kinda, but who really is at work here? I mean, they didn't have to work too hard to knock those walls down. They walked around. They didn't say a word. They walked around. The priests blew the trumpets. They walked around and went back to the camp. Came back 6 days. 7th day, they walked around 7 times. You'll see the fun use of numerology in the Bible, how different numbers have significance. 7, of course, being the number 4. Anybody know, if you did Revelation study, the number of completion and the number of God and the number of holiness, right? 7 days of creation, walk around 7 times. This is all pointing to God and his sovereign power.
7 years of tribulation.
7 years of tribulation, all that fun stuff. Right, yes. Connections. Woo!
I'm reading Left Behind series.
All right, so God really does all the hard work here. Now, of course,
Well, but then they did go in and
they did.
killed everybody.
Well, they did, and that was God's instruction.
That was hard work.
And okay, that was. Listen, yeah, okay, that was tough work, but the hardest work of all would have been breaching those walls.
Yeah.
Anytime in any kind of warfare, especially in ancient times, breaching the walls was the hardest part, because once you got those walls breached, then it wasn't so hard. But to get through those walls was a bear.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to do anything to get through the hardest part of the entire thing. Not to mention, those people would have been so freaked out with the collapsing walls that it probably wouldn't have been so hard to go in and take care of the rest.
Imagine what that would have sounded like.
Oh, I know.
That's what I was just thinking.
And they're all inside.
Was it like an earthquake and
Yeah.
they go? Or?
Crushing down.
Does it really say how tall the wall was?
It never really says.
I mean, I would imagine it'd be pretty.
But it would be
massive.
like a fortress. They did them
Right.
kind of up around the cities.
It's very big.
And last night, Lily said that you all should be playing a trumpet in here today.
I will not, just because that I don't have a shofar. I'm sorry. I left it at the synagogue. Well, all right. So yeah, this is